to The Balancing Act. Now here's your hosts, Jamie Wonko and Joe Vitale.
Back to the Balancing Act podcast. I am one of your hosts. This is Joe Vitale, and of course, I'm sitting here with. She has a new addition in her backdrop. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a chalkboard, ladies and gentlemen, and I kind of want to know what's happening with this chalkboard.
Straight from COVID.
Oh, the COVID.
Yeah,
You know what?
I know.
You know what popped up on my Facebook feed today? I think I tagged you in it. You remember Facebook, right? Old people internet.
Did. Our daily announcements.
Our daily announcements. So when we went on COVID with the, Colonial Middle School used to have the daily announcements. So we used to make the kids do daily announcements.
Yeah.
And we'd have them like each read
Yes.
like a fact of the day and the word of the day and stuff like that. And then when we started doing, Friday Night Lights and drinking on the couch, which I do miss from time to time.
Oh,
We used to do
yeah.
announcements after hours and talk about like
That's right. I forgot.
stupid.
the
I forgot about
announcements.
the after hours ones, right? We gotta dig those up
That
somehow.
was adults only.
I know it was. So what are we gonna use
that.
that chalkboard for? It's back there, back from COVID.
It was gonna say something, and I was gonna have one of my kids write on it because they're pretty crafty and pretty good artists, and talk about running out of time. There wasn't enough balance, so it's a work in progress. My backdrop, my instead of my plain wall, I'm gonna try to add some things up in here. So I want to see how it looks before I fully invest in leaving it there, and then we'll see. We'll see what I was experimenting with lighting a little bit, and
Gotcha.
I
I missed the plant, but it'll be back eventually.
it's coming back.
Well, we have a special guest waiting for us.
We do. So I'm Jamie Wonko, and you are Joseph Vitale.
Did I not introduce you? I don't remember.
That's
One of
okay.
those days.
And
Go ahead.
welcome to the Balancing Act podcast. And we are when I tell you all aflutter, I am aflutter today. I
Okay.
have been just butterflies, excitement, because I just think that our guest today is someone that I've known for, at least 7 years. And just recently, a photo of him came up on my time hop that was from 7 years ago. So I don't know if that was the first, but we're going to put, I'm going to ask Mr. Vitale if he can put that picture of a young guest that we have here
okay.
today.
I will do that.
7 years ago of him doing what he does best.
Okay. And speaking of that, the guy's been sitting around. We should bring him into our little stage here.
Bring him out.
Hey, Gian Paul Gonzalez, how are you, sir? We are. Somebody is very excited. To have you here. Absolutely. And of course, so am I. Thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to join us on the podcast tonight. Thank you.
No, it's a tremendous privilege and honor. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right.
So Gian Paul, I was trying to remember how many years ago, and like I said, the photo came up the other day, and it could have been longer than that. But so as we introduce you here, I'm going to give a little background. I met Gian Paul and was in my capacity as a teacher running a program that is so near and dear to me, and I'm not in charge of it anymore. I'm not the advisor for it. And I miss it very much. And it was Sidekicks, which was like the little brother, little sister version of Heroes and Cool Kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you came to our school to do one of your many gifts, which is Inspire. And we were just completely blown away. It was just one of those days with all the feels. And, we could all go out and do just about anything because Gian Paul Gonzalez told us we could. And so thank you so much for joining us here on the Balancing Act. And maybe you can give us a little bit. I know that you have lots of experience in lots of different areas. So maybe just a little bit about your background, where you come from.
Yeah, sure. So, born and raised New Jersey, Union City, New Jersey, right outside the Lincoln Tunnel. Small claim to fame of Union City is, it's one of the most densely populated city in all the United States. We have a little under 90,000 people in 1 square mile, 28th in the world. So born and raised there. Dad immigrated from Cuba. Mom's Italian, so meals were always good, kind of thing. And then from there, moved out to near North Haledon, New Jersey. Went to high school over at Manchester Regional High School on the border of Patterson, right over there. In Haledon, North Haledon, right in the shadow of William Patterson University. And, went to college, aspirations, enjoyed playing basketball. And then it was kind of through those college years where I just started seeing that basketball could be used for something more. And I think that's what kind of got me a little bit on the path of really thinking outside of the box when it came to traditional formats and traditional, mechanisms, if you will. I'll never forget junior going to senior year, had an opportunity to kind of realize something I was tinkering with, which was using basketball as a way to impact youth. And of course, naturally, a lot of the, establishments in place, school districts, things like that, were a little bit leery of the idea. So our first opportunity was doing it in juvenile jails. And that was kind of using basketball as a way to, just as a bridge. I think there's so many bridges in our culture, in our society. We don't label them bridges. We kind of just leave them in their boxes, if you will. But I think it's more about, can you use this to connect with someone? We know education, it's all about relativity. Kids don't care about Julius Caesar until you can relate Julius Caesar to, Logan Paul. And once you do relate him to Logan Paul, it's like, oh, okay, now Julius Caesar is cool. Okay, wow, what was he doing? Would Julius Caesar have a cool podcast? Would he have a cool energy drink, that inspire the whole, Roman Empire to like drink this and then you'll take over the world, whatever the case may be. And so I'd say it was around that time in college at Montclair State is where I started tinkering with those ideas, had an opportunity to play professional basketball, went out to Los Angeles. But, that's kind of was like a splinter in my mind, if you will, that it always kind of came back to, as great as it was playing at that, on some of the biggest courts. I really loved that light bulb moment, that you talked about that happened at your school. I think whether you're an educator or not, we love those moments where we feel that we can, turn the light bulb on, not just for ourselves, but for somebody else. And I think that's special. I think that's almost divine, if you will. Us being able to, see someone else walk in their gifting, and it wasn't about just what we did. Now they're doing it on their own. And so from there, turned down professional basketball and, decided I was going to go back, get my certificate, pass my praxis, and became a 9th grade world history teacher. And so done a bunch of stuff since then, led me to open up a youth center in our area because I found there's a lack of after school programming and, just a rise, unfortunately, in community-based violence. And so finding what are ways we could ameliorate that. And then along the way, as God would have it, spoke to the New York Giants. And next thing I know, they used the motto I kind of gave them that night, and they won the Super Bowl in 2012 with it all in. And that kind of, had another, just spiral effect of doing a lot of different speaking, corporate speaking. Apologize for the background. So I'm down here in Dallas. I was actually just speaking over at a 7-Eleven headquarters for a diversity, equity, and inclusion conference. But most of all, I enjoy speaking to students and high schools, and I'll be doing that tomorrow over at Walnut Grove High School outside of Dallas here.
That is one. I mean, that is a varied path. If you could ever tree one up,
sorry,
right? No, please don't apologize. I mean, I'm listening to that. And first, all right, listen. I don't want to be topical. I don't know when we're going to be relaunching this podcast, but I'm going to ask you this. Okay, do you really think Logan Paul's going to beat Mike Tyson in a boxing match? I've been asking my students this, and most of them have an opinion. And I don't want to tell you what it is, but I've been wondering what you think because you brought him up. So now I have to ask the question.
There's part of me, we're children of our generation that really wants to see Mike Tyson win really badly. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think we hold Mike Tyson in this esteem, but obviously he doesn't have as much, YouTube subscribership as Logan Paul. So, yeah. And all they've seen is Logan Paul win against, some pretty formidable opponents, if you will. I think as long as I think if you can knock him out in the first round, I think Mike Tyson wins. If it's more of a publicity, kind of thing where you're not allowed to hit the face, I don't know if there's going to have any rules backstage. Yeah. Then I think, if it's going the distance, I'm not sure if Tyson in the last 12 rounds.
I had to ask because I grew up in the age of like Mike Tyson's Punch Out on Nintendo. Yep. And when Mike Tyson fought, like the world stopped. I remember a friend of mine in elementary school, we were like 5th or 6th grade, had like a Mike Tyson birthday party. And we went to his house and like, I swear to God, we went to his house and like, we sat down, like pizza, cake, hanging out, playing whatever games. And like the fight came on and Mike Tyson knocked him out in like 34 seconds. So we're like, all right, everybody go home.
Party's over.
So anyway, no, I have, you mentioned about the all-in thing, and I have it in my hand right now. I actually have a poker chip so I have a connection with you too, by the way. My wife has seen you speak on 2 separate occasions, one at Rutgers University, which is where this chip is from.
Oh my goodness.
And also with OLN, the Nurse Leaders of New Jersey. So she's seen you speak twice. and actually had me watch a YouTube video about your story and
Oh, wow.
and hear about it. So she has both of her poker chips that are in her office.
Oh, my goodness.
Both of them, and they still have a very. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love for you to elaborate more on this and where it comes from. But she still has both of them. They sit in her office. They're on like her little shelf behind the desk.
Wow. Oh, man, that
She
means so
still got
much.
it because no, I mean it meant a lot to her. I mean, and she wanted me to like, oh, you gotta like hear about this guy's story and where this comes from and everything else. So, do you want to elaborate where the old poker chip comes from and give us a little backstory on that?
Yeah, sure. So, was invited to speak to the New York Giants. And honestly speaking, I never played professional football. My dad, he had an opportunity. I got like a brief kind of free agent opportunity with the Raiders, and like he was a football player. Came over from Cuba. He found it was a great way to kind of channel his anger, because his dad was put in political prison during the regime that was there. But I personally never played. Down of college, never mind high school. And, getting invited by the New York Giants is a little bit, I was very insecure. I'll be honest, very insecure about the opportunity. Thinking, why would they listen to me? I'm a ninth grade world history teacher. Like, talk to them about Julius Caesar. They probably don't want to hear about that. How could I relate to them? Because you know how sports with free agency is. It's not like everybody's from New York or New Jersey like they used to be. They're from all over parts of the country. But it was and interesting enough, it was the chaplain who called me up, and it was a chapel service the night before Christmas Eve, and he's like, well, interweave the message of faith, but leadership. There'll be a lot of people in the room, in different backgrounds, different styles, and so honestly speaking, it just a lot of it came just from we talk about history, we talk about the Bible, and I was like, what would it mean to be totally committed to something you really believed in? I didn't even talk about football. Interesting enough, I'm going on my 9th season working with the team. I work as a team chaplain. So I've been with the team for 9 seasons, travel with the team for, the away games, stand on the sidelines, which is fun. It's more fun when you win, but, it's still fun. And, I don't mention football to them because, they know football better than I ever would, but I just kind of challenge them, from the perspective of commitment and saying, what does it look like to be committed, And I knew, background 9th grade world history teacher, we're all teachers. We're always looking for metaphors and analogies to relate, right? Once again, going back to that relate, make a connection. Commitment for me looks like X in a room with 30 kids. When I was teaching 9th grade history every day, they can't connect with that. So I said, poker, that's something they can relate with. I can relate with, what does it mean when you push your chips in the middle of the table and you're playing a game of poker, whether it's at a friend's house or it's at a table in Vegas and everybody's around. There's that moment of fear. There's that moment of like, ooh, wow, did I make the right play? I feel I have the best cards in my hand, but I don't totally know, unless you have the perfect hand, you don't know. It's still a risk. And you're willing to take a risk and give your best. And so that's what I kind of challenged them with that night is, what would it look like to be all in, not as just a football player, but, as a man, as a father, as a husband, in your community, for yourself. And I give them a chip. I feel, all of us are a bit more visual and tactile learners, I think. And so I try to appeal to all learning styles, if you will. Instead of just talking about it or showing you a PowerPoint presentation, I gave them a chip and I passed out markers. Chips weren't anything special. They were from Walmart. I think that one's from Walmart as well.
I think so.
You can buy 100 for about $8.25.
Yep.
Resourceful teachers. There we go. Right.
Yeah.
And I said, take the chip and sign it, put it someplace you see it. And, only you know what it means. That's the thing I wanted to let them know is that you put it in your locker. You know what it means. If you gave your best in practice today, you kind of dialed it in a little bit, maybe for you, it's something else. And it was interesting, the reaction from the guys, some guys did put in their locker because they were very honest and said, hey, I just been playing for myself. And I realized I need to be more of a team player. And other guys actually took it home and they were very honest and said, hey, I know I could be a better father and a husband for my family. And I'll never forget Antrell Roll, who played on the team at the time. He actually got all in tattooed on his chest. And,
wow.
we always have that one friend who always goes too far with everything. Right. And I was like, wow, I never told him to go and do that. But, I like, his reply was one of, I want to be challenged by it when I'm by myself. I look in the bathroom mirror in the morning and, am I willing to be the same person at 2 p.m. that I claim to be, if no one's watching at, 2 a.m. And he's like, I think it's the stuff I do when nobody's watching. I just want to be reminded of that, even if I'm by myself, am I still the same person I claim to be? And I think that, that kind of rings true, and I think that's a good challenge. When I did hear about why I did it, yeah, that's a good point. We don't want to be duplicitous in what we do because that can be a very dangerous lifestyle.
Yeah, and I love the message when I heard it, and that was the year that the Giants played the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Was that the year?
That was the second time they played them. Yeah, so 2012. Yeah, it wasn't the one where they beat them when they were undefeated. It was the second time around.
And that was when you spoke with them, right? The second
Yeah,
time around.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so my second question is, could you do that for the New York Jets? Because I'm a big fan of it's not that I hate the Giants. Trust me, I'll root for the Giants. Like if because my wife and my kids are Giants fans, but like I'm a diehard New York Jets fan, and my life is miserable. So if you could help them, I in any way, shape, or form, I would appreciate it. Please.
In jest, I only work with teams that have won 2 or more Super Bowls. I apologize. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
I'll wear it out on the chin. Thank you. I deserve that. I get it. No, it really is an awesome thing. But I'm also interested in. I know Jamie wants to tag in on this too about like what your sessions look like when you go into schools and how your message resonates with those kids, because I'm sure it has to be something very dynamic. Especially when we're coming off a time when we're talking about students that come in with apathy in regards to their level of effort. Some come in with a chip on their shoulder about the world is against them, and how a lot of the motivation that needs to come from individuals has to be intrinsic, has to be come from inside. So, anyway, James, over to you.
What I was going to say is so you've been a teacher and you know what this time of year is like. So if you were going to give a pep talk to the teachers to, get through the rest of the school year, do you have any advice? A lot of what we do here is we talk about how you balance work, family, aging parent, illness, really just driving your kids, getting everybody, dinner on the table, just really in the thick of it, day-to-day kind of things. But I definitely, because you've done it, like that dip in the energy that happens.
Yeah.
So, so I'm kind of interested in hearing
Yeah, and
about.
I'll be very honest. Like I'm there, and Jamie knows I'm there. Like I am in that. Like I'm like, all right, I gotta like. There's things I want to do, but I'm also like I'm in a rut myself. I'm not saying you're speaking directly to me, but I'm definitely going to make sure I turn the volume up in my headphones. Because no, I'm strong enough to say like, look, there are times when you get that little dip in your motivation and the type of educator that you want to be, and sometimes you need that little pep talk. So, I'm sure I'm not the only person who is listening right now that's having that same issue, especially where we're in the long stretch, getting towards, after spring break, before Memorial Day weekend, getting towards the end of the year. The kids are all bananas. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think what you guys are saying is, I mean, it's so true, and it's the honest fact of the matter, it's so hard. It's so hard, and I'll just I was doing some adjunct professor work for Grand Canyon University, and working with teachers that are going through mostly getting their administrative degrees and certificates, et cetera. And I think it's so challenging because so many times, and I think we're all just be honest about it, is that there's been a weight put on the education system that was never meant to be there. It's not just teaching a subject anymore. It's being a family member. It's being there, in moments of trauma and crisis. And sometimes we're the only ones that are there when the students need someone to talk to or to go to. And it is a privilege, but at the same time, it takes energy. It takes a lot of energy, and it's hard when people. It's like walking around the mall, and you walk around the mall, and an hour later you feel exhausted. And I remember there's a great book, that I read one time. I'm blanking on the name. I wish I remember, but it basically equated, it's like options are just like they take energy from you, because you walk around the mall, you're looking at all this stuff and you think it's going to be relaxing, but really you leave exhausted because there's too many options. It's like going to a diner and there's 250 things you can order, as opposed to Chipotle, and you feel energized afterwards because they only give you 5 options. It's a burrito bowl, burrito, tacos, or a quesadilla, right? That's it. You're not going to get a cheesecake at Chipotle just because they know, hey, you're here for something, this is what you get. And I just kind of put that out there in that sense, and knowing that it's challenging more than ever in education. Teacher retention's at an all-time challenge, and is really, really a huge focus. And so all I would, there's a couple of things that come to mind, but I think something that just helps me a ton is just this idea. I'll read it for you. I was at Clark School District down the Parkway a little bit.
Yeah,
And
that's right around, pretty much right around the corner.
Around the corner
Right?
for
okay,
kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's in our area. Yeah, absolutely.
and they had a parents' night actually last night, and I was there. And there's something I read in a book. It's called The Intentional Father by John Tyson, and he took it from actually Bruce Springsteen's biography. And we're all Springsteen's fans to a degree. From Jersey, everyone's like, oh yeah, that's our guy. But in his biography, Bruce is writing about after he has his first kid, and that his dad goes out to him in California. And I'll just read it word for word. I actually have it here on my phone. I want to pull it up in case the topic came up, but it said he says, this is verbatim. He says he meets his dad at breakfast. They're like having beers for breakfast, kind of like a Springsteen thing to do, I guess. And he says that his dad says, Bruce, you've been pretty good to us, yet as a family we haven't always been very good to you. And he said, in that moment, I tried to make sense of what was happening at this breakfast table. Was this my father apologizing because it wasn't a full apology? But I suddenly had a realization after our meeting. He said, all of us, fathers, mothers, are either going to be ghosts or we're going to be ancestors. We are all going to leave a legacy in those that come behind us. And he said, ghosts haunt us. They haunt us with the brokenness. They haunt us with trauma. They haunt us with failure. And they put that on us. But ancestors leave a legacy. They create a history. They provide a context. And they give a sense of meaning to all those that come after them. And I know this is not a podcast about, parenting necessarily, but I feel because we play that role in so many students and children's lives, for me, sometimes that's a little bit not, to be, beat over the head with something else, but that's kind of my check. Like, even the way I talk to, either students I'm working with outside of school or even to my own children, am I being a ghost or am I being an ancestor right now? Am I being something where my daughter's going to be like, oh, I don't want to tell dad, like I'm scared of him, right? Because he might, or is it like, no, yeah, these are the values we stand for. This is what our classroom represents. This is who we are. And you know what? I messed up on that, but I have no problem being honest about it and knowing that we hold ourselves to a higher standard. And I guess that, that really convicted me, in leadership, whether, in speaking to an assembly full of kids or, whether it's just my own kids at home, I want to be an ancestor. I want to be someone that like, yeah, he gave us meaning. When we walked into his class, like it was different. We had an assembly with him. It like, wow, you can't, I get it. It's tough, 800 kids in a gym, not that, it's a challenging environment sometimes, but it's like, man, I just want it to be different. I want it to be something where, hey, I might not have heard all he said, and maybe I wasn't mature enough to even understand all of it. But man, I left thinking, I want to live like that. I want to be that type of person, And so I know for me, that's something that kind of energizes me a little bit of realizing, it gives me that 10,000 square foot view, right? Of, wow, this is bigger than me. And I am tired right now. And I am frustrated right now. And, spring break can't come soon enough. And it's about, 10 days away. But you know what? Can we use those moments, those 10-second moments? Because sometimes you only get 10 seconds, right? And, those 10 seconds where the kid picks his head up or takes his AirPod out. And those 10 seconds sometimes can be the thing he stops you in ShopRite 10 years later about. And he's like, hey, Mr. Vitale, you probably don't remember me, but,
I've had
what
of
I'm talking about.
Yeah, of course.
We all do.
The things that somebody remembers that you said that makes a difference. It's you never know what you say and where it's gonna and what it's gonna mean to somebody in the future. Whether it be your own children, whether it be the kids that you teach in the classroom. I tried to. There was an incident with a bunch of students the other day, and I tried to talk to them, and just I kind of had this feeling about the way others were speaking to this group. There were some other adults in the room. I don't want to speak ill about anybody, but like I kind of just felt like there needed to be like a moment of like, okay, can we use this as a learning opportunity? Can we can we look at this as, okay, made a mistake, something happened. Let's not had it define us. Let this be a speed bump. I say this all the time. Let it be a speed bump that we can just roll over and not a mountain that we have to continually climb. Okay. I say that to a lot of the students that I work with, that I tutor, and also the kids in my classroom. Like, we need to realize that those little moments, like, although they're bad, like, oh, I learned something from that moment. And yeah, I came out of it as a person who can make a better decision in the future, not, oh, woe is me, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Those are powerful moments. And those are ones that I think we, like you were saying, like that's the new part of the job, right?
Yeah.
It's not just teaching about, you brought up Julius Caesar, love Julius Caesar. You brought up Julius Caesar a lot. And it's not just about that. It's not just about teaching about history.
I have a pretty amazing painting that a student just made of Julius Caesar. I wish I had it right now to show you. It's pretty, yeah. It's in my window in my class. I teach world history now, so
Congratulations.
Thank you. We just did Rome. I'm so upset that I missed that. I could have. Well, I'll tell them tomorrow anyway.
I was actually, I did. My screensaver is the Colosseum because we were there over the summer as a family. So it was an amazing experience to do that. So, and again, I'm a student of history just like you.
Yeah.
So do you still teach now, Gian Paul, or are you primarily doing speaking engagements? And
primarily doing speaking engagements, and a lot of that came about through our after school programming. I think that's, there's this graph, I could send it to you guys later. I read it in Corporate Magazine one time, and when I was educating, and it really struck me. It basically said on every single leadership level, and this is, regarding, corporations, but I think it applies just as much to us in education. They had this graph, and it basically showed, what do all great leaders do? And it showed, all these different character qualities and character traits, but all of them intersected at 2 points. It was like one of those like line graphs with all these different points. But the 2 points that all great leaders do, whether they're C-suite, CEO, COO, CFO, regional managers, or just like, beginning advisors, is they all intersected at curiosity and risk taking.
mm-hmm.
Right. And I just love that, because I was like, that's it. That's what, on our best days, that's what, we would do in the classroom. We would be curious and show the kids that we're still learning just as much as they're learning, and we're willing to take a risk, which means, like, not to belabor the guy, he'd probably be rolling in his grave. We're talking about him so much, but we're studying Julius Caesar. Then we make a crime scene. We put some fake blood on the floor, and we put like, oh wow, how did this happen, right? And the kids walk in, and they're like, anticipatory set out the roof, right? And they're like, what is going on? And then they're telling other kids, and kids are trying to peek in who don't have you as a teacher, and like, oh man, I want that guy. What the heck, right? Like, and it's not that you were trying to cause that, but it's taking a risk. And yeah, it takes a while to clean up fake blood off the floor, of course, right? But you know what? You get it cleaned up before the janitor has to do it, of course. And then the kids, they never forget it. They'll talk about that, and I think, those are the things that really like make a difference. And so all I would say is just like, what led me a little bit taking a step back is we started the youth center in our city because when I finished my master's degree in administration, I did an action research paper on my city. I found out we had a lack of after school programming. And, these are great organizations, the Y, Boys and Girls Club, but I'd respond to them, hey, we need something in North Hudson County. We're the most densely populated area between West New York, Union City, et cetera, et cetera. Like, we got one in Jersey City, tell the kids to come down there. But, like, taking a bus, it's a world away. The parents aren't going to let the bus at night. Jersey City, it's like, no, not happening, especially for a lot of the abuelas, the grandmothers that are taking care of the kids. Like, and so it was like, what if we could build our own? A sense of belonging, a place kids could go out. Because reality, you get 300 kids try out for the basketball team at Union City High School. They don't love basketball. They just want to be part of a family. They want to be someplace where they get to wear a shirt, where they wear a jacket, and it's like, yeah, that's me, that's us. I belong here. And so that's kind of what we started. That led me a little bit away from the classroom, is realizing, is there gaps I could fill that couldn't be filled, by a lot of my colleagues, that could help actually enhance what they're doing in the classroom. Because when the kid is so tired because he goes to our youth center after school, because he's staying there for 6 hours, chances are he's not going to have time to hang out and mess around. That possibly could result to possibly a shooting or a car stealing or whatever the case may be. He's going to be at school, and it all kind of it evolved slowly, though. It evolved from doing after school program in our classroom. I remember the first day I said leadership class, nobody showed up. Put flyers all over school, nobody showed up. Like, leadership, okay, whatever, boring, miss me with that. But then I said, all right, well, what do you guys want? And they're like, oh, I want to get strong. I want to get big. I want to jump high. So literally on flyers, I still have the original one. We said, if you want to jump higher, run faster, get stronger, come to room 20 with Mr. Gonzalez after school. And they came, And I mean, we had nothing. So we just did push-ups in the hallway and sit-ups, off of chairs, school desk chairs. And it went from, 20 kids to 200 kids in about 3 months, just doing push-ups and sit-ups. But then at the end of every single workout session, we would do a leadership session for 20 minutes. We would talk about, hey, how do you get along with someone you might not respect, like your stepdad? You know what I mean? Like, how do you do that dynamic? What does it look like to actually be someone of character, someone of, integrity? And we would have those conversations, and it just started from a classroom, on the 3rd floor of Jose Marti. It's called the STEM Academy now, but it was part of Union City High School. And just things like that. And so it was kind of me seeing how could that work, and then how could we make it something that could be applied, not just in our own city, but then throughout the county. And so we were able to find a building and open up the doors to that. And then we got involved with the Attorney General the past 2 years, being part of the community-based violence initiative, receiving grants from the state of New Jersey to try to bring it statewide. So we're just finishing up our data reporting on that. And, some stuff works, some stuff doesn't work. It's all kind of an experiment, but, just trying to take, hey, that worked. Okay, can it be transferred, not just in our state, but, across state lines? Could it work in Philadelphia? Could it work, in difficult spots down here in Houston and in Dallas, kind of thing.
Yeah. And there has to be some kind of, there has to be data somewhere that tells that programs like that are going to resonate with kids, especially now.
Yeah.
Especially now, more than ever.
Yeah.
Having a place to belong, and whether heard, I think, is also very important. So, yeah.
Do you have any advice for, let's say you have a particularly difficult group, really at-risk kids, lots and lots of them are failing, not finishing their work, not completing their work. Did you have anything that you found worked for you to get them back on track?
Yeah. I remember my 3rd year at Union City. I was charged with writing a freshman seminar curriculum. And basically what our district did is we had two sending middle schools to our high school. And they basically said, we're going to delineate the 50 most high risk individuals from these 2 schools. And then we're going to put them in a cohort, and you'll be in charge of kind of like leading them through their freshman experience.
Is that all?
Yeah. So,
Sure.
and it sounds good until all of a sudden the kids start looking around the room like, oh, this is the bad kids class, right? Like, then they start like, oh, I know where, oh, what? At first it's cool. It's like, oh, that's my boy, that's my girl. And then you're like, wait, why are we all here together? Why do we take science together? Why are we in the same math class? And then they start self-labeling. I think one of the things that I've found to just try to be helpful, and I know this is challenging, is consistency. I just say it starts with consistency. And for me, that's what I saw when I was going to the juvenile detention centers. Is because, you walk in the first time and everyone's like, man, who's this guy, man? He wants to play basketball with us. He wants to talk to us, man. Get the F out of here, right? Like, giving you the finger and stuff like that. And you're just like, hey, I'm just here to help, man. But, when you come back the next Tuesday and then the Tuesday after that, and then, you also have to learn as you do it. I love the quote, and it convicted me when I was getting pretty frustrated and cynical going into my 3rd year of teaching. It's by Erwin McManus. It says, arrogance always looks for someone to blame, but humility always looks for something to solve. And I had realized, I'd entered the teaching profession, and, a little bit thinking I was going to be, a savior, like God's gift to the world. Right. And like, I got this. I grew up in Union City. I know this, hey man, I'm, and it's like, no, you're not LeBron James. You're not starting Promise Academy. Right. Like, no, like you got to be willing to like ask questions and learn, not just from, what you think, but also from them and presuppositions. And hey, what is really going on? And actually listen, not just, listen to just tell them your advice, but actually truly try to hear where they're coming from. And so I think it starts with consistency, and then it goes into humility, of having, humility to be able to say, okay, how can we make this work? Humility, even working with fellow colleagues in administration and saying, okay, yep, I got that. You're right. Because then you can get bitter at administration. Like, oh, the kids need this, but you're not providing it for them. And, let me just become, a superintendent. I'll change everything. It's like, chances are you'll do that with a chip on your shoulder. And that's dangerous too, because then, that you can make just as much damage thinking you're helping someone as then end up hurting someone else. So I think it starts with those 2 things. And realizing, hey, am I willing to change my presuppositions, my biases? I realized I was, going into that year, I started listening to a lot of the 8th grade teachers, and they're great individuals, but I started having biases about the kids that they were talking about going into my class in 9th grade. Like, oh, hey, watch out for her, watch out for him. And I remember just walking down the hallway,
That's the
when
worst.
they're coming to
It's
my
the worst.
class.
I try and I'm sorry I interrupted, but
Yeah, no, you're good.
that's something I try to not. I try to form my own opinion every single week. I actually try to intentionally say, like, I do not care what your performance was last year. We're focused on the here. We can't change what happened in past. We can only change how we are moving forward. So you can rewrite your story starting right now where you're
So good.
sitting. And sometimes that doesn't work. But other times it has to be a clean slate each and every day.
Yes.
For every kid
Yeah.
needs that.
Yeah. So good.
And that is incredibly hard to get to.
Yeah.
Or to realize that needs to be done and then follow through on it. But there we go again, getting back to the word consistency, right? And
Because
kids
they might not have this. They might make a bunch of mistakes, and we love them, but they have an amazing sense of justice. They have an amazing sense of like they remember, and so it's like, yeah, but you didn't do that. Yeah, but you said you were Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez, you said you were going to bring this in on Tuesday. It's like you haven't brought in your homework all year, like, and you can easily kind of like fire back at them really quick and saying, well, you're not but like they hold us to a standard that they might not hold themselves to. But I think one of the reasons they hold us to that standard is because like they really want to believe that somebody can be that person. They really like, we talk about heroes all the time. Like Captain America is not their hero. Their hero is, can I find an adult who means what they say? And when that adult screws up, they're willing to say sorry. And they're willing not just to blame me or say it's something outside of their control, just like every other adult has in their life sometime. They're willing to say, hey, you know what? You were right. I was wrong. And you know what? I don't know the answer to that, but I'll try to find out. Thanks for catching me on that. And it's like when they see vulnerability, going into the jails, I thought vulnerability would be like, oh man, I'm done. Like they're going to know I'm a punk. But vulnerability actually helped them open up. So then when we're playing basketball in the jail and you're sitting on the sidelines with them, then they're just like, hey, you know what, man? Like, thanks for doing this, man. Like, you don't have to be here. I heard that you guys don't even get paid for coming and playing basketball with us. But, and then they just start talking about, hey, I'm in here because, there was an assault that happened. I didn't know the car was stolen, blah, blah, blah. I got, a daughter on the outside. I don't want to go to, adult jail, but, my attorney's saying it's not looking that good. And they just open up because you're willing to show them what it looks like to open up, as a man, as a woman. And I think that's something so powerful is just, with that consistency coming humility, and with humility comes vulnerability. And they can, like, you can live up to that ideal. And they're not looking for perfection. Like we have such a bad view that I got to be perfect, got to make sure I'm always on top of my game. No, sometimes the best moments, it's like, scars speak so much more powerfully than muscle. We live in an age and time like infatuated with thinking, oh, well, if I just see I'm always on top, my Instagram, my muscle. No, I remember when I dislocated my ankle, the greatest encouragement I had wasn't the guy who was playing professional basketball signing autographs for us when we would go to like the place where we had a rehab. It was the person who had the same dislocation of ankle that I had, and seeing him run on the treadmill because he was 4 months ahead of me in rehab. Yeah. And he was quote unquote nobody, but it was just like, wow, he gets me because he has the same injury I had. And if he's running 4 months from now and I'm still here picking up marbles with my toes, can barely break up the scar tissue, like that could be me and I could play my senior year, and I think, scars, they're so powerful because it means, hey, no, it's still there. And it's something that I'm reminded of, but it's healing, and it's healed. And I think that's one of the greatest things we could show them.
Yeah. I during COVID, after COVID kind of coming back, I had a pretty rough, a pretty rough crew of kids, and they were definitely worse for the wear at that point in time when we were coming back. And there were points in time, even during COVID, where I started having lunch, like virtual lunch with kids, and I realized like the level of like loneliness. But the thing is that a lot of those kids, they're still like that. we just saw it because we got a window into their homes and their lives, and the lack of really adult connections and guidance that they have. It was just a different time and place, and I think a lot of times, like, anyone with a little bit of experience in teaching sometimes is like, it has to be like this, and this is the way we're going to do it, and then and so I really have tried the last couple of years to shape the way that I speak to the kids and show them that you can still have a lot of mutual respect without yelling,
Yeah.
without even just, some people quiet yell, and talk to them, and it triggers them. And, you kind of observe those things, but, even just silly things like, and I mean, even teaching 8th grade, when they're absent, I always say, when they come back, I missed you so much.
So
I
good.
missed you
So
so
good.
much, and in the beginning of the year, it's like,
They roll their eyes.
like, what?
Yeah.
And now, they like, they kind of do like
Yeah.
that slow walk in, like, is she gonna say it? Is she gonna look
Yeah.
at me? And it's like, I missed you so, and then
Yeah.
when I'm not there, I wasn't there, like, I was out on Friday. Did everybody miss me so much? How did you deal with it without me? And they're like, oh, we did, and it's just like this nice, way of being, but it is very, very tricky, and it gets trickier year after year, trying to navigate the ins and outs. I have to say, I have used your TED Talk
Cool.
a lot. And
So
the
cool.
kids just like respond to it so well. And, and of course I'm like, I've met him. I've met him in real life, which always makes things, just seem like that much more important and interesting to them. But so now we do talk a lot about parenting. So you're a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Can I ask how old you're? Sorry.
7 and 3. 7 and 3. I got a 7-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son.
Yeah, you are in it. You are in it right now.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, when I first was introduced to you, I'm not sure that you had kids yet.
No, I didn't.
No, right.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different world. How do you balance all of your travel responsibilities, and how do you do that?
Yeah. It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say I have it perfect, because I don't. But I think it's, something that I'm thankful God has helped me with. My wife has helped me with a ton. Is just, there's a great book by Chip Heath called The Power of Moments. And basically I think it's great for, it's more of a corporate leaning book. But it basically goes through all these great organizations and what they do with moments, whether it's celebrating, whether it's, first day for some new employees, new hires. And it's kind of like it's really great to see, how do you harness those moments, those ones that we talked about that can be so impactful. And so I really just try to be, talking about all in is, just really, and I know it's an old cliche, but it's, just be fully there. I remember there was times I would come into my house, and my daughter, she was young, and, she would like tap my pant leg when I'd come in, and she was, looking to feel, my cell phone. And, it's cute until, you remember child psychology that you took in college, and it tells you that at the age of 10 months, kids can discern what we value as adults, and they always look to usurp it as a survival instinct, right? And I don't know, the idea started just bouncing around in my mind, like, does she think she needs to have the cell phone in her hand because she's watching mommy and daddy, and she thinks that's what makes her valuable? And I really was, maybe it was a little overreacting, but I was convicted by that thought. And so, my wife was able to get this box off of Amazon. You can still buy it. It's like this, like, maybe 8-inch by 8-inch box cube, and it has a little dial at the top. And, you could put something inside of it. You put the top on, it looks like Tupperware, but you turn the dial, a little LCD screen comes on, and, numbers start to go across. You press the top of the box. There's no cancel button. Anything you put in the box, it locks until the time elapses. And, it's made of plastic, so if I needed to, I could just break it. And I think we've been through like 3 or 4 boxes by now. But, I just love the idea. We used to, keep it on the kitchen table of like being able to come in, and I would take the phone out and put it in the box, as she was watching. And it's kind of cool because the kids know when the phone goes in the box, that means, hey, I'm all there. kind of thing. Or they know that, oh, okay, hey, that's mommy and daddy, like break time or Sabbath time. Like they're all focused on us, and man, we're going to break out the Legos, or, we're going to do painting with mommy, or, we're going to, order Uber Eats, or whatever the case may be. And I just love that they know it's not a constant, And so for me, that's kind of become one of those things of realizing, hey, I can't make more hours in the day, but I can really learn to focus the time I do have. Because I mean, and I think it unnerves a lot of the students we work with when you have a conversation with them and you look them in the eye the whole time. Because even as adults, we've all been to those parties or functions, right, where someone's always looking over our shoulder as we're having the conversation. And it's kind of like, well, you really want to hear this? You really want to hear the story,
that's actually something that I am
Mr. Vitale.
I
You know
am
what?
awful at it.
Actually,
I'm
I have
awful
to
at
tell you something that kills me, and I'm at fault for my phone for sure. But something that drives me absolutely nuts is the iPhone watch. What Apple Watch?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's like you're in the middle of talking to someone and they're like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like,
Yep.
your arm is in front of your face now in our conversation. But it has really become like and it's not just you, Joe. I'm sorry, it's lots of people.
No, I'll own it.
But he does it a lot. And I've had a couple of like interactions with bosses, people out in the world, and I'm like, is this really what we're becoming?
My most difficult time is like in the class when a student comes up to you and they're talking to you and there's other stuff going on. Like,
yeah.
I can't, like, it's just so hard for me to like focus in on that one person because of the other things that are going on in the room.
The 30 other things happening.
Because I'm so concerned about what's
classroom
happening.
safety management. Is he throwing a marker? What's he up? What's he doing over there?
And that's why I'm so like, and I even say to them sometimes like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention. It's like I'm listening to you, but I have to watch what's going on over there. Like I'll intentionally mention it to them because like I need them to know like I'm here, but I'm not.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I that's, but from a parenting perspective too, I can see exactly where that could be very valuable.
Oh yeah.
And I think one of those things, like when I was in the classroom every day, like one of the things to try to help that, I'm not saying I did this perfectly, is I know the two things, because to your point, Joe, about the burnout, like, and like the lull, I would try to tap into things that I genuinely enjoyed in my classroom, or the reason that got me started working with students. And one of the things I've always enjoyed, as just even when I was a young kid, was like, like serving. Like, I know it sounds silly, but I thought being a waiter was the coolest job in the world. I know that sounds silly, but I thought it was awesome. Like, wow, you get to serve people and then like give them stuff they want, and et cetera. And that can be dangerous. That can go into people pleasing. And that's a separate podcast.
That's what my wife wanted to be when she was very little. She wanted to be a waitress.
There you go. And so one of the things I love is like, I just like, can I give somebody something that they would value? And so the two things I remember I enjoyed is when I would start hitting those ruts and those times, I would try to find certain kids that had, we're not talking about the all-stars, but you can if you need to. I was talking to those kids who turned that C into a B, and I would call home. And I love once again, I love the parent reaction, because they'd be like, what do they do now? And be like, no, this is just Mr. Gonzalez calling up to say, man, they turned in this PowerPoint project about ancient Greece, and they just did such an awesome job. And I just wanted you to know that. Okay. Is there anything else? No, that's it. Just wanted to let you know. Or like, when you tell them, hey, stay after class real quick. And of course they're thinking the worst, because every time they hear stay after class from an educator, it's like, oh, I did something bad. And it's like, hey, I know I didn't get a chance to tell you, but man, you've done a really great job, and I'm very proud of you. Okay, you can go. Let me know if you need a hall pass. And it's like, but it's like that moment where, no one's really saying that to them. And even if they are saying that to them, someone taking time out of their schedule, that 20 seconds, like I know for me, made me feel amazing. And then I know for them, like, it's exponential what that does. Like you said, how they walk down the hallway, how they go into the next class, and everyone's like, ooh, did you get in trouble? What do you say? Yeah, actually just said like, I did really good. Or a lot of times they won't say it because they're kind of embarrassed. They'll be like, whatever, nothing, man, nothing. Like, oh, okay, all right, whatever, but that's that stuff that they hold in their heart. Like, wow, cool. And I think for me, that revitalized me, especially when I'm in low points. And that really helps me keep it in perspective. We do have something to offer them. We're not Steph Curry. We're not Ariana Grande, don't have millions of followers, but sometimes what we say is even more valuable than that. because it's personal, because we know them, we've seen them on their good days, we've seen them on their bad days, and yet we choose to, like, hey, I'm thankful for you, or like you said, Jamie, like, hey, I missed you. It doesn't matter what they drive to school in. They could get dropped off in a Land Rover, they could be taking the city bus. I think, in much working with the Giants the past 9 seasons, we're all humans at the end of it. The guy who's starting tackle on our team, he still wants a great relationship with his family, the same way someone being a teacher does. And money can't buy that. You can't buy that. It doesn't matter how many zeros in your bank account. You can't buy trust. You can't buy integrity. You can't buy genuine, appreciation. And so I think, regardless of outward perspectives, it really comes down to those things, intrinsic things, that I think we have an opportunity to provide.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how appreciative.
I can't stop smiling.
Yeah,
And
I
we have so much reading to do.
I know. Oh, I got a book.
You referenced so many books.
You did.
I can't
I'm
wait.
gonna need to we're gonna need to get a list from you.
Yeah.
There's also a book that I could, you talked about the CEOs that they looked at, and was the intersection of creativity and risk. There's a great book by Tim Ferriss called Tribe of Mentors. Have you ever it's basically, I can't remember how many, but it's like he takes 100 people and he asks them the same 11 questions.
Wow.
And it's a very great read, because you don't have to go from cover to cover. You could just literally flip to a middle of the page and start reading about somebody.
Oh,
but
wow.
he interviews heads of state, Olympic athletes, endurance athletes, high level attorneys, like all people, some famous people, some famous in their own respective fields. But there's a lot of messages that you can get from things like that, looking for resources, like, what are some of the most, revered people in their profession doing, what decisions are they making? So yeah, we have a lot of reading to do. We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of beach reading.
There we go.
So, Gian Paul, I can't thank you enough for wanting to join us today. My last request, besides fixing the New York Jets, would be Jamie and I think, need to be invited to a Sunday dinner, because the intersection of Cuban and Italian food, I think
Unbelievable.
Yes, that would be an unbelievable experience. So
Yeah.
hit us up. Union City is not a far drive.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
We'll come to the old family residence.
My aunt and uncle actually were the same exact combination. He has since passed, but they owned a restaurant in Newark. And yes, she's Italian and he was Cuban, and they had a restaurant called Aben's forever. And it's a good combination.
Yeah,
for sure.
And Cuban coffee's like rocket fuel. It's like,
yeah, little cafecito.
Have you been to Cuba?
I have not. That is something I would love to do. With my dad. See where he lived, where he grew up.
Yeah.
The only challenging thing, and just being honest, is there's some laws in place that if they can trace your hereditary back, a couple of generations, they could keep you there can strip you for military service till you're 65.
Oh, gotcha.
So I didn't know about it, but my dad mentioned it. And he's like, if they know that, like, I was born there, and they find out, like, you could try to leave the country, and then they're like, oh no, you're staying.
Yeah.
And so that did give me a little bit of a pause.
Don't go to Cuba.
Like,
don't go to Cuba.
You might want to find out, like, after that law stops. He's like, not for everybody, but just for you, because I was born here, and your grandfather, like, was in the but police and stuff like that. He's like, just be careful. I was like,
would that even include if you were born in that country, but you are now a citizen of another country? Would that be? That law still would apply in that country, would it not?
He said it could be, because he said it's almost based on, like, dual citizenship. They almost could automatically make you a dual citizen. I don't know. Like I said, there's some funny things that happened there in the past 50, 60 years. So
not worth it. It's not worth it. Yeah.
There are a lot of
my dad lives in, like, Tampa now, which is close to Miami. So he's like, hey, you want to go to Cuba? Go to Little Havana. And you can get some Cuban. So I was like, all right, it's not.
I'm sure there's a lot of good Cuban restaurants in Newark. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Well, Union City, right? Is the
and Union City. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got a pretty good one over there. So.
Yeah.
Well, we want to value your time as well. So, as always, Gian Paul, I appreciate you. Jamie, I appreciate you. This is our
Joe, I appreciate you. Gian Paul, I appreciate you. I've been a fan of yours for such a long time, and you continue to inspire us. And thank you so much.
Yeah, we really appreciate you. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode of The Balancing Act.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Listening to the Balancing Act podcast. Have a topic we should discuss? Drop us a line at thebalancingactpod@gmail.com.